For many years, traveling has been more than a passport stamp for so many. It's been a tool for resistance, access, and advancement. And today, we reinvent the wheel in new ways to explore, experience, and even exchange things. And I want to talk to you about how communities in general, but more specifically, the Black and Brown communities have leveraged traveling to not just escape, but evolve. But before I can do that, I'm Samela, and I am the founder and CEO of Block. Block is a home exchange community, and it is designed for the modern day creative entrepreneur who wants to live, work, and play on their own terms, which means living leisurely. But let's get back into it. So, traveling is so powerful. I recently watched a documentary on PBS about the Great Migration. And you hear stories, you understand a little bit of your history, but we all know that Black history is not necessarily in the books and taught in the way that it really was. And so, this documentary, I think it's like a 5-part series. So far, I've only seen 2 parts, and I'm like on the edge of my seat, like, when are the other parts coming out? When are the other parts coming out? But in this documentary, it was done so well, and it broke down so much of why what I'm doing with Block is so important that I had to turn on the camera and talk to y'all about it. But of course, right? And so the Great Migration, for those of us who's new to the idea, don't worry, I was like yesterday years old when I learned myself. It lasted from 1910 to 1970s, where over 6 million Black Americans left the South to escape racism, violence, and ultimately pursue new opportunities economically, legacy, and just evolve as a culture, right? They weren't just moving, they were creating a new reality that allowed them to do things differently and explore the world differently. And so, out of the Great Migration, because families had started traveling, was a new birth of the Green Book. And I'm excited to share that we will be doing a Instagram live with the founder of the Green Book Global, which is a new version, a digital version. On Instagram, I'll drop the details in the description below. But we're doing an Instagram live with the founder. But essentially, the Green Book was a booklet that you can pick up at gas stations, and it essentially allowed Black travelers to know how to travel safely because there were sundown towns. It was during the Jim Crow era where, unfortunately, you were still very much not a full person. And so, as a response, the Green Book was birthed so that there can be tourist homes. Hey, before you go to this sundown town, knock on my door, and I want to make sure that you're safe, right? This was in the Black community, and it was like businesses that you could shop at, places that you could stop and get gas at, hotels that was friendly and will allow you to stay there. And so, you may be asking yourself, like, was that necessary? And the unfortunate truth is, yes, it was necessary. And the reason why Lawrence, the founder who we will be speaking to on February 20th, is still making this app is because we still live in a world, even in 2025, where traveling has to be done with intentionality, and it has to be done with the level of awareness, right? But while we know all of these things, that should not deter anyone from doing it, because my stance on it. Traveling should be a human right and not just something that's afforded to the privileged. And so, as you begin to explore who you are, who you want to become, traveling is one of those many ways that you do it, right? And so, In the Great Migration, a lot of people were moving north and even to the West Coast for a better life, for better opportunities, for better experiences. And that is exactly what's happening in today's world. One of the young ladies on the documentary said something that was so powerful. I wrote it down. It said, movement is a concrete way to measure one's true freedom. Wow. And me personally, I am actively chasing three types of freedom: creative freedom, so that I can produce and show up in the way that feels most authentic to myself; location freedom, so I can do this wherever I want to explore; and then financial freedom, so that I can make money from my laptop in different ways, impacting people, helping people. So when she said movement is a concrete way to measure one's true freedom, I thought, wow, that is so powerful. And that is 1,000% correct. And that's why Block is being created, because traveling with intentionality and the ability to live leisurely while home exchanging, not only are you showing your best ways to move, but you're using what you have to essentially access what you want, right? So your home as a hybrid nomad is now being leveraged so that you can explore other places, cities, countries, cultures, communities without having the huge expense of lodging. So I digress. Now, traveling is absolutely a tool. We can enhance and access other parts of the world. And so it really shifts perspectives, right? Like, traveling is not just about going to a new place and seeing something. It is the ultimate form of autonomy, because when you go to this new place and see something, you are now gifted with the ability to be new yourself, or to incorporate that new aspect, that new dynamic into your life, and to show up as your better self and to move differently as a individual. And that's why it shifts perspectives. And so imagine, as a creative entrepreneur, you are now going to see these new places, new spaces, and you are getting creativity. Oh, this is how they do things in Dubai. This is how they do things in South Africa. This is how they do things in the Bahamas. And now you can bring that back to the States and incorporate these new models and new ways into your business model, into your movement, into what you're creating. And then guess what? You've been transformed simply because you took a trip that you thought was for a woosah or for a breathing moment, but when in fact it unlocked your creativity. And so I am big on encouraging Black and Brown people to travel more. And the reason why I specifically say Black and Brown people is because our white friends have always been traveling. They were just given a different luxury of doing that. And that's not to take anything away from them. Great job, kudos. But I'm specifically talking to Black and Brown people because we oftentimes find ourselves trying to decide between luxuries or lifestyle things. And I propose to you that traveling is not a luxury. It is a lifestyle, and it's an investment, because you unlock new things that you never even knew was possible when you go out and see the world. God is not just the God of the United States. He's not just the God of New York. He's not just the God of Miami and Boston, right? He's the God of the world. And guess what? God is a creator. And so when you go out and see all the beautiful things that he's created, you are going to be unlocked and transformed and come closer to who you are and become more rooted in who you want to be and show up more authentically, because you see it done in so many different communities and ways and colors and shapes and sizes. I could talk about this all day long, but I'm going to get back focused. So, why now? one of the key pieces, it ultimately allows you to create a new form of wealth, right? Because you now have unlocked something within yourself that you wouldn't have accessed if I would have stayed in the inner city in Chicago, right? Born and raised in Chicago, if I would have only tried to build a business based on what I knew from my Chicago days, it would have been limited. But because I moved to the US Virgin Islands, because I moved to Miami, because I live in New York, because I've traveled to 13 islands, because I've lived in 8 different cities, I now have a plethora of experiences and memories that I can take and create my own form of wealth that I can now share with you. Now I can incorporate into my business model, right? And so it ultimately allows you to create wealth. It allows you to expand your community and your network because now you're meeting friends in these places. And that's one of the things that we're extremely focused on in Block, right? We don't just want you to go places, we want you to meet people there. We believe that there's a global way in community where you can have a friend in South Africa, you can have a friend in the Bahamas. You can have a friend in St. John. You can have a friend in New York, right? And guess what? You guys can actually enjoy some of the same things, decide to live a similar lifestyle, have like mindedness. And even when policies change and things change, you have somebody on the ground in those places who could say, did you know that this is happening where, over here with us? And you're like, oh, wow. I wonder how long is it going to be before the US creates that or before that's a policy. And guess what? You get ahead of it. Do you understand? Are you following me? Traveling is so much bigger than we know. And so, because Black and Brown people have always had to improvise, we are at the forefront of innovation. But in order to innovate, you have to see more, you have to experience more, you have to learn more, you have to travel more freely. And doing that, of course, requires leisureness and being able to work from your laptop, generate income in new ways. But the world is changing, and it's important that we also pivot with the world. And our ancestors, watching that documentary about the Great Migration was so transformative to me because it gave Black even more meaning. It allowed me to understand I'm not just building a home exchange platform for today. It is rooted in our history. It is rooted in what we've been about the entire time. And that is essentially seeking a better life, creating more for ourselves than what someone believes that we deserve, opening up doors, experiencing new things, and redefining what it means to have freedom for ourselves. We don't need permission to be free. We don't need permission from anybody else to be creative. We don't need permission from anybody else to learn to make money from our laptop. And we definitely don't need permission from anybody else to explore the world. So, as we close, I would love to welcome you to not just join Blocks community, but put your special touch on it. Tell us where you've been. Open up our eyes because that's the only way that we are really going to exchange is if we exchange notes, tools, resources, and more specifically homes. So I absolutely look forward to seeing you at the top. I absolutely look forward to having us experience this transformation together and be great. I will see you on the other side.